What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's time for us to talk about All Elite Wrestling Double or Nothing. The pay-per-view just ended a few minutes ago, and we are going to break down the hits and the misses and everything else that we think about this event. And who are we? Well, I'm your host as always, Tony Mango, and joining me as always are the usual suspects of Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert D. Felice.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. So, it is 12:12 a.m., and to be perfectly honest, I'm going to rush by this a little bit because I've got a wedding to go to tomorrow, so I don't want to be up editing this at 7 in the morning and not getting any sleep and everything like that. So I apologize for people who wanted us to do a 3-hour breakdown. Maybe we're going to address some more of these things in the future, but, that's another thing for another day. Double or Nothing is a big deal, and we have talked a lot about this leading up to this, so we don't want to harp on the same opinions that we've done before. This is going to act predominantly as the same type of a show review as what we would do for a WWE thing. So the one difference being, I need to talk before anything else about just the presentation itself. We obviously had never seen what they were going to bring to the table when it came to the production quality, the graphics and video packages and some different things like that, and the set and all the other elements that are outside of the matches themselves. I feel like that was one of the best parts of the night. The graphics were great, good audio quality, good video quality, minus a little bit of feedback on the microphone in one segment. Video packages were filmed really well. They all looked like they were quality instead of just being like some indie promotion trying to do WWE stuff. Ring looked good. Not a fan of the turnbuckles myself. I don't like that style, but that's, personal preference. I liked it. How did you guys feel about the overall presentation?
I was a fan of the overall presentation. I really enjoyed the tunnels, kind of harkening back to the original Impact Zone, had the entrance tunnels. I thought that was really cool. I thought the pyro was there when it needed to be, and it wasn't excessive. There were some pretty cool, unique personal entrances. I don't know if it was just me. Did anyone else hear a cough every now and again come through their headphones? Only on the one ear. It was like somebody was in the back, whoever was walking through the commentary team must have been coughing, because I only heard it once, every hour and a half or so.
Nah, I wasn't paying super high attention for that to come through.
I didn't wear headphones when I was listening to it, so
yeah, I didn't do that either. So that's another element to that.
Maybe that's a weird thing that I got just because I had headphones, but yeah, I kept hearing this cough every now and again. But overall, great presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like the set design. I like the stacks of poker chips, and the Titantron was good, and just the whole staging. They did special entrances for the big matches, and just for the rest of them, it was just business as usual, but still very good. I could nitpick with a few things. There were points where Justin Roberts' microphone cut out before he was starting doing entrances, so that was a little amateur. There's the big issue with the fact that the YouTube feed did not start at the time that the buy-in show started, which is a really big deal. So I ended up eventually switching over to Fight to start watching it because the YouTube one just wasn't working. So that is a huge deal, and it's something that they need to address immediately because that is very amateur hour. For a show that did end up as good as this one did, that is something that could really leave a black stain on it immediately and really put a lot of people off immediately. Go ahead. So just before they even got a chance to watch any of it, a lot of people would say, well, it's not coming through the feed, so these guys clearly don't know what they're doing, and would switch off immediately before even tuning back in.
So what happened was they were going to be on all the social media channels for both All Elite Wrestling and TNT. The AEW stream for their personal YouTube didn't get underway. I ended up personally switching to Bleacher Report Live, which worked fine, and I hear that the TNT stream worked fine as well. It was just a specific AEW YouTube channel that wasn't working as it was supposed to, and yes, I agree that is an issue that they need to never repeat, but I'm willing to forgo that one because the show ended up being quite good.
Oh yeah, and the only other thing that I would note in terms of the production thing was a bit of the camera. Some of the camera work was a little shoddy as well. Like missed a few key spots in some of the matches, but overall, yeah, the production was nowhere near any sort of like it wasn't amateur by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of it looked very professional.
Let's put it this way: Ring of Honor just wrestled in a sold-out Madison Square Garden. These guys look 10 times better than your average Ring of Honor pay-per-view.
I'm going to say something that I might refer to a couple different times here, but I don't want anybody to crucify me. I know that they will. I know going into this, anything I criticize, people are going to go, "You're a fucking WWE mark." And I know anything that I say is really good, people are going to be like, "Oh my God, you're such a mark for non-WWE stuff." I can't possibly win. But I felt like this was a difference, kind of like the difference between Raw and NXT. I felt like this was sort of a hybrid of the two. This didn't feel quite on the level of like a Monday Night Raw, but it didn't feel undercut on the budget like an NXT show would. You know what I mean? Like, the presentation felt very WWE light to me.
I wouldn't call them WWE light because I think if you call this promotion WWE light, then you're just saying any promotion with decent production quality is just a light version of WWE. But I will say that I agree in terms of it being a hybrid of the main roster and NXT, with an emphasis kind of being on what WWE was maybe 14 years ago now, where it's like it wasn't completely lit as it is now, and they don't have LED boards, but the production quality is still very high grade.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to emulate a lot of what WWE does production-wise, because let's face it, as much as we can shit on like creative decisions they make and stuff along those lines, production is actually pretty top-notch in WWE.
Yeah.
Very, very professionally done, very slick. It's too glossy, which we noted on the prediction show, and I think AEW steered away from that enough to separate themselves a little bit and be a bit more natural and authentic. But like in terms of anything else, like the video packages WWE produce, all that other stuff, like they're the people to try and emulate as closely as you possibly can, really.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't mean that in a way of being like, it's WWE light and like, they can't be any better than them, and it's like, whatever. That's why I mean that I can't say anything, and I know that it's going to be like somebody in the comments going to find fault in it. I mean it as in, how much better can you get than WWE? Well, they aren't quite at the WWE level, but they did a damn good job coming really close to it. Like, they are not even as low as what the NXT thing is. They're above NXT. They're between NXT and Raw. So that's why it's like, main WWE is Monday Night Raw. And this was like WWE light. It's not quite 100% there, but it's damn close. So I thought that was really impressive. Like, the graphics looked spot on. Actually, I was worried about the graphics because the graphics were something that I thought they were lacking in going into this. Like, you look at the Fight for the Fallen logo, and that's trimmed on the side for every single one of those. And I was like, this isn't going to work out. And the graphics were great. Like, overall presentation, I thought it was good. What did you guys think about the commentary team? I thought that they took a while to get into their nerves taken away, but eventually they sounded like they were doing a pretty decent job.
So I think that the meat of the commentary team will be Jim Ross and Excalibur, with Alex Marvez maybe taking over for things like the buy-in or probably 3 out of 4 TV shows. But I really enjoyed the commentary team. I'm not going to lie. I think going into it, there was a lot of like, Jim Ross is going to bomb. He's going to screw this up somehow. But I think JR was really solid.
I'm not going to lie. Years of watching WWE has conditioned me to not listen to commentary very much. So it's kind of just background noise to me. I'm kind of more listening to the crowd or listening to the actual action itself. Like, I'm hearing the stuff that people are saying, but I only pick up a few bits and pieces. So I'm probably not the best person to judge, but from what I heard, they didn't make anything that majorly annoyed me. I mean, there are a few bits and pieces where Jim Ross seems to maybe lose his place a little bit, but like he's getting on in years, and he was still like perfectly fine for the most part. Excalibur was fine. I know some people will probably be annoyed about the fact that he's still wearing his mask, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, but I guess he is a guy who wrestled in a mask. It's I don't think it's that ridiculous. I mean, maybe people would equate it to like a football player doing commentary while still wearing his helmet or something like that.
If that wasn't built into the culture, then it would be a different story.
Yeah, but I think they were perfectly serviceable as a commentary team. I did note like a few times where Ross was making very explicit digs at WWE.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was the one that was really leading that side of things.
That's actually something that maybe we should just talk about as like a separate note instead of side by side. But I know that some people really, really wanted that to be the case, to make as many shots to WWE as possible. I felt like they needed to take some, but at the same time that they did a little too many throughout the show.
I think, well, the one that was the most explicit was the Cody entrance, which, I mean, it hit people like a sledgehammer over the head in terms of how subtle it was.
I have a note that just says, "Sledgehammer and Throne, stop calling attention to WWE."
I think that was just, I guess it's just kind of his way of breaking away from the entire mold of things. And I think if it was, that's the only one instance where it was like super explicit, calling against the WWE stuff, then I'm kind of okay with it. And also it got a huge reaction from the crowd. I do say, like, if they can do that once, they can get away with that once, and it's fine, and people get excited by it, and then they'll remember it as like, oh, this really cool moment. But if he or anybody else starts doing that regularly on show-to-show basis, then they're going to start getting called out on it.
I just thought it was lame the way that they did it too. Like, it just didn't look like it was great.
So I saw the throne, and Cody's done entrances with a throne before, so I didn't think it was out of place. And then I looked at it and I said, that's a Triple H throne. No doubt about it. But he didn't do anything with it. He just sort of looked at it. And then all of a sudden, Brandy pulls out a sledgehammer. And I just laughed. Because I knew what was coming. But it's almost like Callum said. The crowd loved it. And it was another great use of pyro with the throne kind of exploding. So don't do it a lot. In fact, I'd say stop here. This was good enough. But I liked it.
And also, I think there might be an argument that it was supposed to look lame.
Well, if it was supposed to look lame, but they figured it out.
Well, in the sense that I think it was meant to be like a version of like kind of mocking Triple H's entrances of getting like these overblown things. So he decided to do one which was more just, I guess, B horror movie style special effects to just lampoon it a little bit more.
Pyro-wise in general, I thought was underwhelming. I kind of wanted them to do a little bit more for that, and I just kind of sort of felt like it was very bare minimum. Not just like that, but I mean like throughout the whole night. Like I wanted more pyro.
I think it's okay for what they did. I'm sure Pac was probably scheduled to get some pyro. I find it weird that the only one that really did, outside of, the major people, was Kylie Ray. But I'm okay with them not being WCW, where everybody had pyro almost unnecessarily. So we'll see how that develops as we go along.
Yeah, I don't really have too many thoughts either way about the pyro, as long as it's there in some form or fashion. It's more than what WWE is giving us on most shows, so
yeah,
not going to complain too much.
So the first match of the night was in the buy-in. It was the Casino Battle Royale. We talked a lot about this going into it, about potential surprises and stuff, and I thought that this was equal parts really stupid and stupidly fun. There's a lot of weird notes that I have written down here, and the best way to just put it out there is this was the circus match that if you wanted like the gimmick battle royal, you got it. You got a guy with a lit cigarette on his head. You got the super heavyweight. You've got Tommy Dreamer showing up, and he's battling with Jimmy Havoc with a trash can, and Luchasaurus is throwing Joey Janela headfirst through a table for an elimination. Kind of all over the place, but the very first note that I have is one of my favorite parts of the whole entire night. MJF attacking Dustin Thomas. And he says, "Sorry about that, Lieutenant Dan." It's just like, God damn it, I like this guy. MJF was the star here, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, MJF seems like a wrestler you would enjoy.
He's like the Miz.
Yeah, that's a fair comparison. I didn't like the style of the Battle Royale. I think it was unique. If they do it again, I won't mind too much. But the 5 people at a time thing was clunky, and I don't think it allowed people to really shine the way that they might have thought it would have.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Oh, yeah, I'm completely the same boat. I think it was poorly put together, especially for the first entrance into the match. Like when the first 5 people came in, it just seemed like the camera didn't know where to go. Roberts didn't seem to know what to be saying at that point in time. It was just a little all over the place.
So who is this Orange Cassidy dude?
Okay, so his gimmick is essentially is that he's a parody of wrestling, in the sense that he wrestles with his sunglasses on and his hands in his pockets all the time, and he just hits people really weakly. And so he does that. He basically tries to mock them for a while, get them frustrated by not doing anything when they hit him. He doesn't retaliate. He doesn't do much offense. And then eventually, usually a point in one of his matches is that someone snaps his sunglasses, and then he gets angry and starts fighting them. And then he's actually...
I thought it was stupid as hell, and I liked it.
Yeah.
So I actually saw Orange Cassidy live when he was still just a normal wrestler. And then when I saw him again, I thought he was portraying like just a hungover dude who didn't have any energy. As time has gone on, he's really developed his character well. But the funnier bit here is that Cody revealed on Thursday night at StarCast he booked 22 people for the 21-man Battle Royale. Orange Cassidy was the accidentally booked 22nd man for a 21-man Battle Royale.
I guess it was over the budget. Yeah, he's an interesting character. He's a very much a love or hated type wrestler. In terms of like other things in the match, I was disappointed with some of the performances. Not so much like the performances, but just the amount of exposure they got. I mean, I was looking forward to seeing what Brian Pillman Jr. could do, and he was out of the match within a minute or so.
Shit.
I can tell you what he couldn't do is get his kick right in that entrance.
Yeah.
Totally whiffed that one.
Yeah, missed his kick. I think he did one move on someone and then got eliminated by was it Party something?
Private Party.
Yeah, got eliminated by Private Party. And yeah, so that was disappointing to see that he just like wasn't involved pretty much at all. Dreamer got a lot of attention, and I kind of think at this point, I mean, it's a nice nostalgia pop, but I think at this point maybe he should be wrapping it up soon. But I guess it is just nostalgia at the end of the day.
The funny bit. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, at least they didn't give too many of the veterans like too much exposure. Like Billy Gunn was just kind of there, and Glacier didn't do much either.
Glacier had his whole freezing the person with the mist thing.
Was that a thing that Glacier used to do?
I didn't remember that.
I thought it was funny, but I had a bit throughout the night with the person I was watching with where I would go, what happened to the sports-centered presentation? He just stapled the guy's dick. What happened to them wanting to be more sports-oriented? Because there was quite a few spots in this show, especially in this Battle Royale, that had a lot of just shenanigans. And I didn't understand, and maybe we'll get more acclimated with it as we grow to know what AEW is. But there were a couple of spots here where I was kind of confused as to what the overall brand image was.
I think that's going to be a big problem going forward, because I can see contradictory opinions of let's be the type of pro wrestling that's all sports. Let's be the type of pro wrestling that's all gimmicks, kind of like the hokey, fun circus aspect of it. Let's be the type of pro wrestling that's way over the top, like Luchasaurus, and a character that plays the part of somebody who knows that wrestling is fake. And I don't think that some of these elements are going to mesh well together, and I guess they're still just trying to figure it out. And when we get a TV show, it's going to be a different story of like figuring out the process and stuff. But at least for this one, I'm going to view it on this. This represented a completely different style from the rest of the night, so thumbs up for me at the very least.
I would agree with that, and simply say, as long as these characters, or the majority of them, stay within one-time gimmick matches like this, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I don't think if they are going for a more sporty feel, as it seems to be, like certain characters like Orange Cassidy and Luchasaurus might have to get toned down. I think Luchasaurus, even though his gimmick is a bit weird, is actually a really good wrestler, and I think he impressed me the most out of everyone in the ring in terms of just actual in-ring work for this one. But I think there's room for both, as long as you keep it contained to both.
Who was the one that looked like he was like 10 years old?
Is it Marco Stunt? Yeah, he's about 5 foot tall, if that really.
And like 60 pounds soaking wet?
Yeah. So he'd been wrestling the night before with he's actually in the middle of a feud with the like wrestling not commentator, but like Wrestling Observer member Brian Alvarez. Essentially, he's been wrestling him on a lot of shows over the last couple of months and so. And he's also been part of like Joe Janela's Spring Break, that sort of stuff. He had like a breakout match in their first match there. So, but yeah, he's a really, really small kid who does the Fortnite dance when he does something cool.
Yeah, see, I don't want to see things. Yeah. I don't want to see things like that every week on a TV show, or Dustin Thomas. Like, I don't want that to be like, oh, every battle royal we're gonna have that guy come out, and like, yeah, it's fine for certain things, but my favorite part of this whole thing, more than anything, was that they put Hangman Adam Page in there, and that they had MJF try to do the whole like capitalize and win, and then Page ends up winning, that kind of a thing. That was my favorite part of the whole thing, which I know some people are going to be like, that's just like typical WWE shit, and it's like, I liked it. I thought that part worked really well, more so than having Caroline's favorite, Sunny Kiss, just kind of sitting in the corner doing nothing.
Sunny Kiss is awesome and can really work, and I hope they get a chance to actually show that somewhere, because obviously, as we said, this Battle Royal didn't spotlight people enough.
Yeah, I didn't have any notes on Sunny Kiss at all. I've completely forgot he was even in the match.
Yeah.
He got to do the kind of butt smasher to Tommy Dreamer, and then immediately got thrown over. I think the final like 5 being having Luchasaurus and Tommy Dreamer, even though I think Luchasaurus is good, I think that was kind of a mistake.
I think the fact that Page got a very strong reaction, both to his entrance and to the victory, shows that like that was the right choice.
Yeah.
To win the match, and he's also ready to be a world champion if they do decide to go in that direction. Obviously, we'll talk about the main event and what ramifications that may have, but he's ready to be a world champion, I think.
So the second match on the buy-in was Kip Sabian against Sammy Guevara, and I have nothing to say about this match. I thought it was the equivalent of you put on Raul Mendoza against Humberto Carrillo. I have nothing to say about it. No personality elements, nothing. This was just blah.
I like the panda outfit in Sammy Guevara's entrance. And I like Kip Sabian. I think over time we'll grow to like these characters more, but I can understand why you feel that way, and I don't disagree with you.
it was a good match, but I wouldn't go any further than saying it was a good match. It's kind of like what you'd expect on a kickoff show in a WWE show. It's like if you put two good workers together and you give them 10 minutes, they're probably going to have a good match. And these two, they were given 10 minutes, they clearly know what they're doing. There's a fair amount of flippy shit on there, but Guevara mixed it in with a bit more like physicality. I can't say I'm going to remember anything about it too much. Like the only way I do remember anything about it is just looking back on my notes. But yeah, I mean, there was one point that annoyed me in the fact that, and this is just a thing that annoys me about indie wrestling in general, is that Guevara was locked in a leg submission by Sabian at one point, and then pretty much straight after that, he goes through like a series of flips constantly. It's like just landing on the leg and just going, oh yeah, that was the part where he does like the moonsault from the top, lands on his feet, and then does another moonsault. And I'm like thinking, wow, that leg healed amazingly quickly. That's what you get with indie wrestling.
Yeah, and that's something I want to talk about. That, I mean, I might as well just talk about it right now. Every match felt like the same to me, and I don't like that. I felt like every single match was super kick city. And just, like, the athleticism is great. That's something I don't think anybody can really argue. Like, these guys are super athletic, and I couldn't do any of these things that these guys are doing. But watching this match, and then watching the SoCal Uncensored match, and watching the Best Friends match, and watching... the only one that felt different to me was the Cody and Dustin one. But every match was just sort of like, look what I can do. I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. And I get when people criticize things like that, and I feel like after watching a 4-hour show like this one, I was just kind of like, okay, or a 5-hour show or whatever the hell it was, that was just like, all right, can I get something a little bit different here? Like, I get it, you can do a hurricanrana, you can do a super kick, and a super kick, and a super kick, and a super kick, and follow it up with a super kick, and then a tope suicida. I'm over that, you know?
I think that's just what people want to see mainly. And I know obviously that's obviously not the style that appeals to you, but that seems to be the style that appeals to a lot of people. And to be fair, that's WWE style as well.
That drives me nuts in WWE too. Like that, this isn't just like, oh, it's AEW and everything's gonna be horrible.
And I'm not trying to compare everything that AEW does to WWE, but that is what wrestling is now. That is wrestling, essentially. And whether you agree with it or not, like that, every single promotion has that sort of style of action.
Yeah, I got a feeling that AEW is going to play more into it than WWE is, just because they're going to play up that idea of like, well, we're more athletes than the WWE people are, and that's going to get tiresome really fast. Because it did in this show, you know what I mean?
Let me just piggyback on all that and say, it was hard for me to get into some of the matches, because as much as I know that is the bread and butter, like Callum said, WWE does that now. Everybody has matches that are that good. So it took a while for me to start really feeling the show. But once they kicked it into gear, it was great. But they can't rely on just flips and super kicks and stuff like that alone.
And I kind of feel like this was not only a hard pay-per-view for me to review, just because I feel like if I say anything critical, I'm going to have people jumping at me from all sides and be like, you know, you're a WWE mark, or you're a WWE apologist. But I also write for Bleacher Report. And to be perfectly honest, Bleacher Report being part of Bleacher Report Live, kind of feel like there's a certain amount of, if I say something good, then I'm a Bleacher Report shill. If I say something bad, then who am I upsetting? It's kind of one of those kind of things that I'm stuck between a rock and hard place kind of a thing. And I feel like if I were to watch like a WWE show, I could review the show more honestly, not just because of that stuff, but also because I could pay attention to what's going on more and actually review it. Whereas this type of content, more sports oriented and more just like the athleticism, there's not as much substance to it for me to review. Like, unless I become somebody who's reviewing the actual, like, well, I wrote down 5 times that they botched in this, and I wrote down that this was a better super kick than that one, and I wrote down that this, then I'm going to start nitpicking the athleticism behind it more than the actual whole segment. And within 10 matches of this, I was like, you know what? I have nothing to say about a lot of them. Like the SoCal Uncensored Strong Hearts match, I have written down generic but good. Scorpio Sky gets a thumbs up from me. Because it's like, all right, it was fun sports to watch, but that's it. Like, you know what I mean?
No, and I think that's absolutely fair. But once we get into the TV show, there will be more substance and more story to cover.
Hopefully
I
that'll
think
be the case.
You're just getting over the hurdles of, I don't know these guys. All I know is they kind of all wrestle a similar style. And that's hard to review when you're trying to differentiate the matches. And I can understand that.
Yeah, so everybody be a little patient with me when it comes to that stuff. I do not know these people super well. I do not know, obviously, every little element of their entire history of their careers. And if it just becomes like, yeah, the match was okay, that's going to be a lot of what I say, probably.
I do want to ask you now, from an objective standpoint, having finished the show, is All Elite Wrestling something that you would like to continue to cover?
Yes and no. I would like to keep watching it. I don't know if I want to keep reviewing it.
Okay.
And we'll see, like, throughout this review, of course. But, like, for instance, that's literally the only notes that I have down for the SoCal Uncensored match. It was like, all right, kind of fun.
I was surprised that SCU won, to be honest, but I felt like you did, where the athleticism was good, but I also thought this match went on just a smidge too long. That might have just been me, though.
I could see that.
I was just saying before I would probably echo a lot of your points, but just before I move on to like reviewing the SCU match, as I say, towards the end of the buy-in, there was a video package for this wrestler called Sadie Gibbs, who's a like
do you know
UK
her?
best. Not very like clearly, but like she looks well. Just by look alone, she looks very impressive. So I'm interested to see if I can find out more information about her and see how well she does, because she definitely looks the part.
I think I had heard her name before. I
It was
didn't really get a good look at her because I was like coming back from just like putting something upstairs kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But Sadie Gibbs sounds familiar.
I thought it was a very well shot video package. I thought it was quite similar to the ones they used to introduce Kevin Owens in NXT,
Yeah,
where he's
I
just
can
in
see
the
that.
ring doing his moves and stuff like that. So I thought that's pretty good. But in terms of the SCU Strong Hearts match, I thought, I mean, I didn't expect SCU to win as well, just mainly because you want to establish these new guys if they're any good. But I think this match did a good enough job of establishing the fact that the Strong Hearts team is pretty good wrestlers. They had a good blend of like strong style offense and mainly using strikes and kicks to go against the more technical side of things that Daniels and Kazarian and Scorpio Sky were doing. I can understand why people would walk away from this saying that Scorpio Sky looks great, because probably people who are less familiar with Ring of Honor and stuff like that, this might be the first time they ever see Scorpio Sky. Whereas I'm familiar a bit more with Scorpio Sky, and he definitely had a great match, but I was more enraptured by how good Kazarian looked in this match.
Yeah, Kaz and Daniels brought it, and I was very surprised to see how much they were doing and how good they looked throughout this entire match.
Yeah, and with Daniels, I always expected from Daniels, because I've never seen. I guess I probably have seen a Daniels have a bad match, but he's so like well versed at this point in time that he needs to almost be consciously thinking about having a bad match to have a bad match. Whereas Kazarian has always been a bit more of like the muted understudy to him. Like Daniels is the big deal, the big like ball of charisma, whereas Kazarian has always been just like his partner, at least in my eyes. But in this match, I thought he really delivered and really produced some really good stuff. But overall, it was just like, it was a good introductory 6-man tag, which warmed the crowd up and got the team that everyone liked over, even though they kept talking about how much they hated the town they're in.
Then we had the 3-way match, which turned into a 4-way match. It was Kylie Ray, aka Totally Bailey, and Nyla Rose and Dr. Britt Baker and surprise, surprise, Awesome Kong, which that was cool that they brought Awesome Kong out there.
Oh, there's a couple of moments in this show that I marked out heavy for, and this was the first. I am so happy to see Awesome Kong in mainstream wrestling again, and it also means that whenever she's promoting Glow, All Elite Wrestling gets that rub, and this is just super cool all around. And it's the only time I'll do this on this show, but Brandy Rhodes, perfect 10.
Oh God! I totally forgot to write this down in my notes, and I need to talk about it before we get too into this. They did a whole thing backstage with Kylie Ray and Alicia Tout and the librarians.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fucking stupid. I did not like that librarian thing at all.
Okay,
it was too overdone.
Context for Tony, I'm sure Kellen knows. So the story goes that Tony Khan wanted a librarian character. This is the Being the Elite story. So they had fans do audition tapes, and Leva Bates, aka Blue Pants, was picked by the Young Bucks, or she's picked by the Young Bucks to be the librarian, and then Cody and Kenny picked Peter Avalon.
Peter, yeah.
So it's silly, but I think once, it was another one of those things where I said, hey, I thought they wanted to be a sports presentation, but I'll accept it on the pre-show, and we'll see where it actually gets figured in later on. But yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't like it if you didn't.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where it was like a joke that plays out too long, and the joke is that it's playing out too long.
Like the Michael Nakazawa bit.
Yeah, and that was just it's a little bit overdone, but we'll see again. I'm willing to see where it goes. In terms of this actual match, Kylie Ray's great. Like, she's like Bailey turned up to 11.
She's my favorite.
Yeah, she is just a ball of energy that's just smiling all the time. Like, even when, like, the only time she stopped smiling was when Awesome Kong came out, and it's kind of like this weird face where she really wants to smile, but she knows she's terrified, so she just can't bring herself to do it. I think this match was good. I think Kong is rusty, which is why I think she was limited to a number of spots, which she did fine, but like it was just like she's there because she's a big name, and it will take her a while to get back up to speed in terms of wrestling, and she's getting up there in years, so we don't know how good she's going to be going forward in terms of like a one-on-one match. And so they smartly saved the meat of the match to be between Britt Baker and Kylie Ray, and those two are really good. So that made the match a lot better. You just get a little bit of Nyla Rose coming in and Awesome Kong being in when they need to. They do the obligatory Tower of Doom spot, which the crowd goes crazy for. The thing I love the most about that Tower of Doom spot is that Awesome Kong stayed on her feet afterwards, which I think too many times you see this Tower of Doom spot and everyone just goes down for 10 minutes, whereas Kong just stood there and looked like a beast.
Yeah, because why would the hell would it hurt her?
Yeah, I know, exactly, but too many people do that other side of things.
They do it all the time.
Yeah, and then I think the one thing that I didn't like, well, there's two things that are slightly different, but like may link a little bit. The first thing was I thought the ending came a little bit abruptly.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Because those two were just having, like, had a kick out and then another kick out and then just, like, hit the Ushigoroshi in one. I do appreciate the fact that Britt Baker uses one of Adam Cole's signature moves as her finisher, and she does use the super kick and all that other stuff, so...
Well, everybody uses the super kick.
Oh, yeah, I know. And then the other thing I don't like about it is Brandy being a heel authority figure already.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sick of heel authority figures. I'm really sick of them, and I don't want AEW to fall into that trap again, because we get too much of that in WWE.
Yeah, she's kind of just doing the Stephanie McMahon thing.
Yeah, it's just like she comes out with Awesome Kong, clearly is backing Awesome Kong to win this match, and then when Britt Baker wins, she gets a surly look on her face, and you like think, okay, so this is going to be like a feud going forward. It's Brandy Rhodes being both a wrestler and also in a position of power behind the scenes at AEW, and Britt Baker having to work her way up and overcome her to be the champion. Like, it's a story that's been done a million times before, and it's not exactly like the worst way of building a character up, but I would have thought maybe they could get away with a couple of months or maybe a year or so at least without having to turn Cody or Brandy or one of the executives heel.
Well,
But
the protagonist-antagonist relationship that they've had, it seems so based around context. Like, Cody seemed like the villain going into the match with Dustin, but by the end of it, wasn't. And I think we'll see some of that with Brandy as well. Right now, she's acting like the heel because she's going towards that match with Allie in Jacksonville, and Awesome Kong is going to be in her corner. But that's kind of like a weird revenge plot for Brandy. So after that, maybe she won't be. Maybe by the time we get to TNT, they'll all be neutral characters, or we'll see. But I would agree with you guys. I don't want to see heel authority figures in AEW for at least a year, maybe 2 or 5.
And we had the best friends beating Angélico and Jack Evans.
This was fucking fantastic.
Yeah, good match that I can't complain about at all.
For me, the bulk of the night seemed like AEW is going to have such a good tag team scene. And this match was really good. There was maybe 5 double team moves that actually made me say, holy shit. Like, the best friends doing the reverse outsider's edge into the cutter.
Yeah, that was cool.
The Doomsday Gobstopper knee. Everything that Jack Evans and Angélico did. Like, this match was so good. I have one complaint, and it's aesthetically, they all fucking wore neon green, and it pissed me off.
It looked like there was 4 people of the same team.
Yeah, but I can get over that because this match was so fucking good.
I was going to say it was a really good match. I like both Evans and Angélico. My issue with the match is that I don't think Beretta and Chucky T could keep up with Angélico and Jack Evans. I think they're a gimmick, essentially, and that's fine. But it's just a case of watching it and think, oh, wow, these other guys are pulling out so many cool moves, and Beretta and Chucky T are just there. They're kind of doing stuff, but it doesn't match up in any way in terms of the athleticism or ability. But they're the ones the crowd was behind because they hug, and that's cool. But yeah, it was a good match. It had a solid ending. It had a lot of athleticism throughout it. I think Evans was the star of the entire thing, though.
And JR made a point to repeat that 4 times. That Jack Evans is tougher than a $2 steak. Wow, this Jack Evans has a lot of heart. I mean, Jack Evans might have ended up being an overnight sensation because of this match. And I don't want to make that seem like he hasn't worked his ass off his whole career. He has. But this match might have put him on that global scale.
I mean, he's a late bloomer because he's 37 years old. So
that's okay.
It's not like it's an issue, but I don't know how much longer he's got left in his career, but he's been working for 20 odd years or so. So it's good to see somebody like that get his big break on this sort of stage.
So who were the masked people?
No idea.
Super Smash Brothers was the tag team.
Tell you one thing. If you're going to get people to be ringside and stuff, don't get people that are out of shape. It's like, that whole thing was just kind of, it was funny. Caroline's watching it with me, and she's like, who's the guy that has a marshmallow body? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know who any of these people are.
Well, they were just, it's kind of like Undertaker Druid. So they were just heartless, nameless heartless to
put a
get
shirt
over
on
the
them.
attack.
I don't know. I liked the surprise of them having something happen like that, but since they were even like, oh, who are these people? And I was like, I don't know who these people
and
are.
Excalibur knew who they were. That's what pissed me off. He's like, I know who they are, but I don't want to say. And I'm just, say who they are because everybody's confused.
But it's it's still introducing a new team. I mean, it's partly doing that because a lot of people probably don't no, I didn't know who they were. A lot of people probably didn't know who they were, but like you're still kind of intrigued because they took out 2 of the teams. They've got these minions that surround the ring and will do their bidding for them, and then their finishing move, this like cutter-like move, was so it's essentially like an eclipse, but with the guy being held up in the first place by his partner, and it's pretty cool move.
It was a thing that was an interesting concept that could have been executed better. That's how I kind of put it. Then we had my least favorite part of the night, the 6-woman tag team match.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck?
This was my favorite match of the entire night.
I wasn't feeling it at all. I thought that it was confusing why the teams were the teams. I thought Aja Kong was lumbering. The trash can spot I thought was stupid.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
Did not like this thing. I think that there's a lot of talent in there with particularly 3 of them, and I honestly I can't remember which ones some of them are necessarily, but Hikaru Shida I think looked like she has some potential behind her. Of course, again, I don't know if I haven't seen matches for these people. The one on oh god, I can't remember her name now.
Yuki Sakazaki.
Yeah, she looked pretty interesting to me. And the one that was kind of like another Bailey, like she had something to her. The Freddie Mercury girl, I wasn't too much into her, and Aja Kong, I wasn't.
I thought this match was fantastic. The only spot that I didn't like was the trash can and kendo stick spot, because it was about the 4th time in the night I said, hey, remember that sports-centric presentation? And I think the way they worded that so heavily is going to bite them in the ass a little bit, because they're clearly a promotion that's experimenting with a lot of latitude in the rules. And that's okay. It just didn't match up with what they were essentially teasing themselves to be. Aja Kong looks fantastic. I don't care if she's lumbering. She's a badass. She was supposed to be lumbering.
She was supposed to look like she couldn't walk down to the ring?
How old is she? She's up there in age, I'm sure. And, she still pulled off a very good match. Riho looked really good, especially only being 21 years old. She's going to have a good career. And Hikaru Shida is going to be a major star in the AEW women's division. I love this match.
Yeah, I had a smile on my face from the start, from the first entrances coming into the ring, because the entrances looked, it was different than the other way they'd done it, because they all got their separate entrances and got to show off a bit of their character and their aesthetic, which I thought was good. I do agree that it's a bit weird, why the teams were chosen the way they were, but I can kind of let that slide because
they explain it though. It was veterans taking on their proteges.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It was hard for me to be honest too. It's hard for me to review this when I was doing live coverage for 3 websites at the same time. So little elements like that were completely taken out. Hadn't planned on doing live coverage for 3 websites, but that's what happens, sometimes.
I instantly fell in love with Sakazaki because of the magical girl attire, and Sakura dressed as Freddie Mercury was awesome. The "We Will Rock You" spot was so good. The crowd was so hot for this match. They were so excited by everything. This is better than any match you'll see in the women's division for WWE this year. And I'm gonna stick my flag in the ground now and say that.
Definitely the tag division.
Oh, yeah, definitely the tag division. But I think in general, I think 5 of the women in this match are better than any woman in WWE. And and the only ones that I would potentially put on their level are Asuka and Kairi-san, which is, funnily enough, they're both also Japanese, because Japanese women's wrestling is really, really, really good. They have a level of athleticism and physicality that they don't allow I don't know if they're allowed to do, but just the women in WWE can't match. They have to be more storytelling or submission based or something along those lines, because they just don't hit each other hard enough. And maybe that's a good thing, because some of these things look like would hurt each other, but this was so well put together. I love the fact that it mixed both the athleticism they were showing and the physicality with like character elements, and they were having fun as well. It's like a perfect blend of like actual athletic, like real good wrestling mixed in with the comedy and interest. It's not like a strict comedy act like the Iconics where you're just like screaming and doing your silly pose and then can't wrestle to save your life. Like these ones can blend the two things, and then that makes it interesting to watch. I thought it was a great spectacle, and like I said, I will say again, I think that was my favorite. That's my favorite match of the night, and everything else that followed it was great. It was the real turn. It was like real like flip the switch of AEW's pretty damn good. This show's going to be really good.
Yeah,
for me, my low points.
For me, that switch flipped midway through that best friends tag team match. That's when I started to really feel this show, and it did not slow down because I believe next we had Cody and Dustin, did we not?
Yeah. Oh, I would say also just because there were a couple of botches which I will not like just try and hide away from, based on the fact that this match was great. But there was a spot where they had to kind of delay doing the pin because I think it was Riho was doing, or actually I think it was Sakazaki was doing a springboard in, and she was a little delayed, and so essentially they had like a 4 count on one of the women, and they had to just not count it.
Mm-hmm.
And then other one.
Go
ahead. No, you go.
I like the whenever the girls would go for a pinfall, the other 2 women would immediately cover the opposing side. So
that's a very Japanese like tag team.
Yeah, like it was fucking logical. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. And then the other one was obviously the 2 count ring bell, which it happened twice really, because it happened at the end of the battle royal as well. I think just maybe this like either what timekeeper has an itchy trigger finger, and so just like he's just waiting to ring it. Maybe he just thinks that's his calling in life, and he's waiting just for that moment to do it. But I think they managed to get around that well after the customary "you fucked up" chant, and they managed to deal with it reasonably well, show they were confused about it, and then get back to the finish. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, not my thing. But to each their own. You know, my opinion's not inherently any more weighted than anybody else's. Then we had the Cody and Dustin match. I thought that this was the best match as far as like storytelling. The bleeding stuff I thought was a little bit over the top, but I enjoyed the match. It wasn't as good as I was hoping that would be.
It was better than I thought it would be, and this match reminded me that I really liked blood. I thought that Dustin bleeding a gusher made everything so much more impactful. It made the figure 4 look brutal. When he reversed it into the Indian Deathlock, that was a great visual. Cody was covered in blood, and none of it was his. And it was a fun match, and they told a great story, a simple story with simplistic wrestling moves that for everybody that wants to call Cody, I see this phrase a lot. He's a 3-star general because he just has average 3-star matches. It's simple storytelling. It gets the job done. Not everything needs to be a Kenny Omega spectacular. And then on a personal note, as somebody who is going to fight for the fallen, to hear that we're going to get Cody and Dustin against the Young Bucks, love it. Thumbs up.
This match was like an excellent match based on just the storytelling narrative behind it. I think it was very well put together. I appreciated the blood in it, but it was too much. And I think that must just be due to the fact that I think Dustin bladed incorrectly. I think he caught an artery or something along those lines. It was like I think it was very similar to the Eddie Guerrero Judgment Day one, where he got hit in the head with the chair by Brad JBL, and then he's literally like losing like a pint of blood every couple of minutes or so. Whereas I think Dustin, because I can always tell when it's like really badly done when you can see the blood dripping onto the ground.
Yeah.
Because when people that do it reasonably well or correctly, like someone like an Austin or a Triple H, when you have those iconic blood things, or even like a Ric Flair, obviously, it goes everywhere for a bit and then it dissipates almost immediately. Like the cut's there for a while and then it goes away, but you're left with this like the dried blood on the face, which is a lot less dangerous than what happened to Dustin. Because I would not recommend anyone ever doing that. But yeah, I thought it was good. It was good that Cody played the heel pretty quickly on. Brandy got ejected. DDP making a cameo to carry her up the ramp. I liked there's a few like really basic storytelling elements, like Dustin pulling Cody's tights down to give him like a whip on his like behind. That is a very Ric Flair like move. That was a very like that. I imagine that would come straight out of a Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes house show match from the 80s. Then you had the crowd was getting super excited. The crowd was more into this match, I think, than any other match on the entire show. Like they were standing to like in the last like 10 minutes or so, just wait and see what would happen. You got a good number of near falls towards the end of the Crossroads and the Dustin doing his own version of the Crossroads as well. The final cut, all of that other stuff. And yeah, the Cody winning was the right call, and the segment at the end was really emotional and got a really good reaction as well. So yeah, this was awesome all round.
Yeah, thumbs up for me. Thumbs down for the world title presentation. To a certain extent. Don't jump down my throat yet, everybody. Not meaning you two, I mean people in the comments. Although if you are in the comments, leave a comment below. Tell us what you think about this. And while you're doing that, hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell for the notifications. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Boom, some of the plugs out of the way. Knock off Bret Hart music introduces Bret Hart. They basically did the exact same Bret Hart music, which reminded me of TNA to a certain extent. Not the best thing to do. He kind of stumbles along here saying it's an honor to be in the world championship match tonight, and they're going to fight for the championship at the next pay-per-view next month or many months from now. It's been a while, whatever, that kind of a thing. It's Bret cutting a promo in 2019, whatever. They do a whole thing with Hangman Adam Page comes out, MJF interrupts, Jungle Boy comes out, Jimmy Havoc comes out, they fight off MJF, and then Bret is holding the championship in the ring, and there's nobody to get a camera shot of it in a proper sense.
That is the only reason I would give it a thumbs down, because
the title itself looks fine from what I could tell, but everything that led to that point was kind of
It's a really good looking title. I saw a decent close-up shot of it. It's a beautiful championship belt. I just wish they would have gotten a solid camera shot. I don't mind all of the MJF stuff beforehand because, they were filling time. I'm sure that this was slotted to be a little bit of a Hangman Page match. So they were just filling time. Scary update that I'm reading on social media now. Bret Hart apparently fell off the stage when walking back. And people said it was a bit of a scary moment. There's not an official update on him, but he doesn't seem to be too hurt. But yeah, he did fall off the stage.
Oh, that puts a bit of a damper on the whole thing, really. The crowd was able to pick themselves back up after that, then.
I do have to say I disagree with Tony as far as the knockoff Bret Hart music. What else would you expect them to do? They don't own the, WWE Bret Hart theme. And it was a shock that Bret Hart was even on the show. My guess is that was penciled to be Ric Flair. But, hey, when you don't have Rick, who do you go with? I guess Bret Hart's the next best thing.
I don't think Ric Flair would have done that.
I think he would have.
Well, I mean, if they would have paid him enough money, he probably would have. But I mean, like, I don't know. He seems like he's got a little bit more of a WWE kind of tie for certain things,
which is odd. But because you think Bret would be more loyal, but
Well, they were both going to be at StarCast, so it could have been anyone of like many legends at StarCast. Like, I'd imagine more maybe on Anderson doing it or something along those lines. But it was good to see Brett, even though he was stumbling over his words a bit. I enjoyed the segment purely and simply for MJF.
Yeah.
Who was absolutely incredible, and the microphone shows how good of a heel he can be. Like, just some of the lines, like mocking the fan rushing in to attack Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Calling Paige Seabiscuit, talking about like the horse getting a bum leg and gets being put down. I think he's going to be a world champion in the next couple of years for AEW. He has to be.
You're going to hear this phrase a lot from me. Give him the belt.
Yeah.
Just give him the belt. Make MJF stand for it. Give him the belt.
The Havoc Jungle Boy stuff was maybe a bit it was a bit overdrawn, but like Rob says, maybe they were filling time for the Page Park match, which is meant to happen on the show. But yeah, I think it was fine for the most part, and it was a good way for the fans to calm down and just relax a little bit after the emotional roller coaster that was the Cody Dustin match, so they wouldn't feel too worn down for the next matches coming up.
The next match after that was the AAA World Tag Team Championship match between the Lucha Bros and the winners of the match, the Young Bucks. Kind of surprised the Young Bucks won. Good match though. Again, super kick, super kick, super kick, super kick, super kick. That's kind of really
but
annoying.
they're allowed to. I cut them slack. They're allowed to do that, because what else would you expect from a Young Bucks match? This was really good and went on for a while with a lot of solid false finishes that really surprised the hell out of me, and I did not expect them to win. I don't know why they won. Maybe because they're going to drag it out to Fyter Fest because of the whole Pac not being their thing. But yeah, I thought this match was fantastic. And again, All Elite Wrestling is going to be such a great tag team promotion. And this was another instance where it was so obvious JR was taking a shot at WWE, where he said, why can't tag team wrestling be great? There's really no reason when you look at a match like this, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I can imagine the Revival was watching this show, were very envious at this point in time.
Crying.
Yeah. And Gallows and Anderson are probably counting down the days until their contract expires.
Yep.
So,
I actually said
plenty of other teams too. The Usos probably doing the same thing.
Well, they signed new contracts, so they can't get out of it anyway. So
still, they're probably looking at that going, crap.
Yeah.
I said to my friend midway through the match, man, I just want the Revival here tomorrow. Like, that's where I want them to be.
Yeah. This match was as great as you'd expect it to be. I'm a little surprised that the Young Bucks won, basically because they were telling the story early on that the Young Bucks hadn't wrestled for a while, so they were a bit rusty and they weren't getting on the same page as much as they would do. But they managed to fight back from that side of things and get the win with the Meltzer driver. I kind of find it a little bit odd that a move that has the word Meltzer in it was the finisher for 2 matches. It's obviously the best Meltzer ever was the way that SCU won it. So maybe they were giving a little bit too much credit to Dave on this one, but
well, no, you can't give credit to Dave Kellum. Wrestling media is unregulated, and you can say whatever you want, according to Cody Rhodes.
Okay, well, I'll go along with that then.
Sure.
There was a few good stuff like Phoenix doing his balancing act on the ropes to do that Hurricane Rana onto Nick to the inside, while still having like a hold of Matt in the process. He's just so agile on those sort of surfaces. It's fantastic. I think these two teams could have a lot of good matches going forward together over these championships. I'm not entirely shocked about the Young Bucks winning, just because if they have a working relationship with AAA, they could lose it on a AAA show, and maybe AAA would prefer it if they did lose those titles on
probably
their next big show. So we can see that happening. There's also obviously the possibility that they defend those titles against Cody and Dustin at Fight for the Fallen to add a little bit more investment into that match as well. But yeah, it's what you expect from these two teams, which is a really fun, exciting match with a lot of false finishes and flips and super kicks.
And finally, our main event was Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho with a Cracker Barrel in the middle of the ring,
Amazing.
which was you're gonna hate me for saying this, but this was my favorite part about it was the idea that Jericho put that barrel out there and just kind of was acting like the referee was a complete idiot, because I thought that was really funny. That's not to say that this was a bad match, because obviously this wasn't a bad match. This is a very good match, but I just thought that was particularly funny, and I was like,
that was hilarious.
we're already at a highlight here, like this kind of thing.
Well,
I want to see Chris Jericho versus the Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, him versus the barrel. Maybe Donkey Kong could be the special guest referee. I liked the match quite a bit more than I thought that I was going to. I don't think that this is the type of match. Let's put it this way. I don't think any match on this card is the type of thing that everybody should be like, oh my god, this is like a 14 out of 10. And this one as well. I don't think that this was a 10 out of 10. I don't think this was a 5-star match. I thought it was a very good match.
It was a very good match. They did a lot of really tight spots, and Jericho, I know Tony doesn't love the new Jericho, but I think Jericho looks great. I think Omega is maybe heading towards a losing streak, but that's fine, because when he starts winning and he gets on that roll, that's going to be a great story for them to begin to tell. And they got over the Judas effect. But it wasn't just the Judas effect, it was the Judas effect following a code breaker, and it wasn't teased throughout the night. He just hit it once, and that was it. And by the way, apparently after the show, Cody got on the mic and said that Omega was basically wrestling with a broken nose for the majority of the match.
So yeah, I thought this match was very good. I don't think it lived up to their previous match, but again, their previous match had the advantage of having weapons involved a lot more. Obviously, this one did have a table in the process of it, which I guess they're going to be a little bit lax in terms of those sort of rules in the same way that you see in New Japan. But
I don't want to backtrack too hard, but at no point during any of the tag matches did they enforce a 5 count when both of them were in the ring. Just so
what was that 10 count thing?
Well, it's the idea of like once you make a tag, you have in WWE you have a 5 count for the other team to get for your partner to get out of the ring if you want to do a double team move. That's the way that it should be. Obviously, they don't follow that rule, and AEW said they're going to be doing a 10 count rule, and they're not following that rule either, because nobody ever follows any rules in that stuff.
AEW said they'll do a 10 count on the floor, and some of the referees did initiate said 10 count, but some simply did not, and they got it over by saying each referee is different, and they will,
fuck up
referee
whatever they want to fuck up.
They will referee as they see fit. So basically, we will allow whatever latitude of the rules that we need to get whatever match we need to get over.
WWE.
It's essentially like this. It's. I know that sort of like stuff that's sort of stuff promotions say to try and differentiate themselves, but at the end of the day, every promotion does the same thing in that regards. In that they say they do this certain rule and then they change it when they need to make sure the match goes the way they want it to.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of whether they do start enforcing it more or not, it's essentially just an empty words to make them seem like they're doing something different to other promotions. But in terms of the actual thing, I liked Jericho's entrance, showing all the different gimmicks that he's been under, and then they cut to just the new Jericho. Kenny's entrance was good as well. Obviously, I have the issue of the fact that I'm watching this at very early times in the morning. So I do have, on occasion, the tendency to fall asleep during matches. And this was the one that I decided to start resting my eyes a little bit during. And maybe that was harsh on it, but it's just, I didn't get enraptured with it as much. I think it dragged too long. I think it could have done with just being like 20, 25 minutes. It ended up being close to 30, 35, I think. And I think that was a bit too long, especially with the fact that it didn't have the same gimmicks attached to it that their previous match had. It was still very good. It was still had the good finish of like the code breaker into the Judas effect. And Jericho winning, even though I didn't expect it at first, after Page won the thing, it made the most sense for Jericho to do it because it's now a veteran against a young guy for the title, which is probably the best way of doing it. And yeah, I don't think Omega loses anything from losing this match, and Jericho got to gloat at the end of the night about how he's kind of he's AEW. Like his character is a projection of the fact that AEW was a company built for him, not for the fans, which I like.
Yeah, so this promo was a good promo to illustrate that he is a heel and to set up the idea that we have the surprise of, well, not really so much a surprise, but a surprise in general, that Jon Moxley shows up and he hits him with the DDT, hits the referee with the DDT, goes to do the same thing for Kenny Omega, and the two start a brawl that leads to the stage, which ends with Moxley hitting a DDT on him anyway on the poker chips that are on the stage, and it ends the show with basically, I guess you were Stone Cold Steve Austin for AEW, Jon Moxley, standing there on top.
Not only
like
that,
that
he threw Omega off the poker chips.
I did that too, yeah.
And crashed.
Do you think it was intentional that was an attitude adjustment?
No.
I think that's just a throw.
That's just what he happened to do. Also, I like that they didn't fully make Omega a bitch here. Omega fought him for quite a while. You can see that this is a program that they're going towards. But I just want to chime in here and announce that All Elite Wrestling has issued the following press release confirming that Jon Moxley has signed a multi-year deal with the promotion. So he's now wrestling full-time for AEW and will make his in-ring debut at Fyter Fest. Thoughts?
That is a huge acquisition for them. I mean, it was very much like rumored, so it's not like it's a huge surprise, but it's good to know they've got hold of him. I'd be interested to see whether that deal is exclusive or not, because like you could potentially hear about the fact maybe that Moxley wanted to like do other independent stuff. So whether it is exclusive or not, though, it's still good to get hold of him, especially for a multi-year deal. And he made the perfect first impression. Like many people might have said that maybe he should have appeared in the Battle Royal. If he's there, then he could have done the Battle Royal, I assume. But doing it as the final image is him having destroyed Kenny Omega is probably a bigger, more lasting image. And as Jim Ross saying, like, how do you like AEW now and that sort of stuff towards the end is it's basically just showing, okay, Jon Moxley's here, winning business. And I think that was the message it got across. And
I sent the message out to you guys immediately. I said, game, set, and match. I didn't expect this. I really didn't. It was heavily rumored, but there's so much of, oh, Punk's going to show up. Oh, Joey Ryan's going to be there, you know. So once I saw him, it felt like a big deal. It felt like, holy shit, you know, Razor Ramon just showed up on Nitro. You know?
I will have one criticism about it, but I understand why they did it, but I don't want him to do the dirty deeds anymore. In the sense that I know that's, or at least if he does do it, I don't want it to be his finisher anymore. Because it's just a DDT. He needs something that's more him, as opposed to just, and that's the move that obviously he's known for in WWE, but it's just a double arm DDT, and that's a little bit lame as a finisher. I've always thought it was lame towards the end of his run. I think he needs something more impressive. But that's just me. Maybe it's not the biggest deal in the world.
I would agree with that.
I'd like to see something different too, depending on what his options are. If he does something worse, then obviously go back to the DDT. But yeah,
but he looks motivated though, which is a good sign.
Yeah, he looks like he's happy.
And it was a real surprise and exciting. And yeah, AEW means business. There's no, you know, just saying, oh, well, you're just being a mark for the alternative. No, AEW scored Dean Ambrose when WWE put a 7-figure offer down on the table. This is a big moment.
Yeah, this, more than anything, made me feel like, okay, they've got a shot. And that speaks a lot to Dean Ambrose being a character in WWE that can go over as Jon Moxley and not just feel like it's like some kind of, oh, who's the next person that popped up in the Impact Zone type of thing. No, this felt like a big deal. And even though this event in itself, kind of wrapping things up here a little bit, is not the strongest show, I feel like I'm going to end up enjoying at least one WWE show this year more than this, whether it's an NXT show or something else. I think that this overall was a really good presentation that shows that they do mean business, and that, when Fyter Fest comes out, I'm going to want to watch it. And when that goes down, if it's better than this, then that's awesome. If it's worse than this, then we're going to have to revisit things a little bit. Like, there's,
I
there's
wouldn't
ups
put a
and
lot of
downs.
stock into Fyter Fest. I would say Fight for the Fallen seems to be their
Yeah.
next major event. Also, we didn't touch on the fact that August 31st, they officially announced the, I guess, sequel to All In, which is All Out, and it'll be at the Sears Center in Chicago on Labor Day weekend, complete with a StarCast convention and everything.
You guys think they're going to make that their WrestleMania?
I don't know, because to me it doesn't have a Mania type vibe, and I feel like we'll see when that branding comes in. If they start branding, the December show with the backing of TV as this is what we're working the year towards, then I feel like that's something more of what we'll get. All Out, though, could be their WrestleMania, since it's kind of like their year anniversary.
I think it's a good time to do it because it keeps them. It's far enough away from WrestleMania. Obviously, August placed them in the path of SummerSlam, but as long as they do it afterwards, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. It keeps them far enough away from the old time that Starrcade used to be on, which was obviously late December. And yeah, it keeps them away from New Japan's Tokyo Dome stuff as well. So it keeps them away from all the other major wrestling events. So it's probably a good time to do it in towards the end of August.
All right, well, those are my opinions. Anything else you guys want to talk about real quick?
No, good.
Yeah, well, just as a general show, I thought it was a great first impression for AEW, and I think the only shows that can kind of match it this year, at least in my opinion, are the NXT Takeover New York and the Wrestle Kingdom show. They're the only ones that can really are on that sort of level. I don't think WWE's main roster has produced anything this close, anything this good so far this year. Nothing from Impact or Ring of Honor either. So, but yeah, I think this is a great starting point.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
All right, everybody. Well, tell us what you think in the comments below, as I mentioned earlier, and subscribe to us. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Hit up that Patreon at SmarkOutMoment and at Fanboys Anonymous if you want to have more of these things in the future, because remember, we're adding an entire extra company to the mix. It's a hell of a lot more work, and I don't know if I can pull that off. But merchandise is another thing you should be aware of if you want to join in on the monetary side of things. So go to the TeePublic and the Redbubble shops for Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and a Mango Tees. Also, go to fanboysanonymous.com. You'll check out my reviews of Brightburn and Aladdin. I just put them up the other day. And follow all that stuff that's over there. And those are pretty much all my plugs that I already got out of the way and stuff like that. So that's it for me. Callum?
Well, you can follow me at Wigmeister14 on Twitter. Power rankings are up, and you can check out all the other articles on smarkoutmoment.com. And 2001 Wrestling Odyssey will be out sometime next week. So somewhere between Monday and Friday. I can't say a specific date, but I'm hoping to record it sooner rather than later and get it out as soon as possible. So look forward to that. So that'll be the May edition, where we talk about obviously the reheated tags from that month, as well as reviews of Insurrection and Judgment Day, as well as a special match which goes down in wrestling history almost from an episode of Raw. But you can check that out to find out what that one is, and I'll pass it over to Rob.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. You can check out everything I've got going on at eWrestling News, The Ring Report, WrestleZone on the WrestleZone Daily, all that good stuff. Also, check out the weeklies, and maybe I'll try to confirm this on the air. Callum, are we doing a review of Dominion in 2 weeks?
As long as like it's not inconvenient, then sure.
All
I'm
right.
going to be watching it, so yeah.
A very convenient truth. We will review NJPW Dominion, and that means you're gonna have a lot more of us in the coming weeks. So thank you for supporting, and yeah, that's it for me.
And the next immediate things you're going to have on this channel are the hot tags, and then the mailbag for the month. And then we're going to start again the takeover, because we have to do the takeover predictions and the takeover post show. So all that stuff is coming your way next week, as well as all the other things we were talking about before. So plenty of Smark Out Moment content coming your way. And if you can't get enough of that, go to smarkoutmoment.com, check out the articles and everything else that's happening there. But for now, this is going to do us in for this pay-per-view point. Thank you for listening, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.